How did Vince McMahon crash the stock of his own company? Are we about to enter an era of WWE with no McMahons? And most importantly, what does Vince do all day now? Breaking news! Vince McMahon still controversial no matter who owns WWE.
Support WrestleTalk!
On the 15th of November 2023, it became official. Vince McMahon had sold 8.4 million shares of the new WWE and UFC merged company, TKO Holdings. Wow! 8.4 million shares, that's it sounds like a lot. I've got no idea what that means. Companies, particularly big business ones, often have complex accounting and ownership structures, meaning there's loads of different kinds of stock. Dividend stock, ownership stock, common stock that your mum comes from. The SEC filing reveals Vince sold 8.4 million of his Class A stock, which traditionally have the biggest voting powers. It's the majority Class A stock owners who can decide on the macro decisions of the overall company. That means Vince just sold a third of the most valuable part of his life's work. Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics has clarified what that means in terms of cold hard money. Posting on X, Vince McMahon ended up selling 8.4 million TKO shares at a price of $76.41 a share after underwriting discount and commission to Morgan Stanley. Comes out to net proceeds of $641,844,000. He still holds about 20 million TKO shares, roughly 12% of the company. He held 16% before this. A great man once said Vince McMahon was a millionaire who should be a billionaire. Well, you were wrong again, punk! The stock sale means Vince just added $642 million to his bank balance. On paper, he still has double that as stock in TKO Holdings. As of the 20th of November, Forbes lists his real-time net worth as $2.6 billion, making him the 1,193rd richest person on the planet. And you know he's going to be annoyed he's not in the top 1,000. The problem is, McMahon making such a big withdrawal from TKO spooked Wall Street, causing the company's shares to plummet. WWE works a different way now. In the past, the top people in the company, like Vince or Stephanie or Triple H, would routinely sell off a portion of their shares to give them a little bonus. Maybe to buy Succession-style treats like expensive wine, helicopter rides, or a family holiday to Siberia to hunt the most dangerous game in the wild, captured humans. That stock-selling practice actually got them in hot water back in 2020 when other shareholders filed a lawsuit against WWE alleging senior executives inflated the stock price via what the lawsuit claims was a misleading Saudi Arabia deal to sell more than $282 million worth of their personally held shares. WWE denied this, but will go on to settle that lawsuit for $39 million. Not the only time we're going to cover settling lawsuits outside of court in this story. As a result, TKO Holdings appear to be doing things in a more corporately transparent way. Rather than investors waking up one morning to Vince having suddenly sold a third of his ownership, which would imply something was up, TKO got out ahead of it and announced the sale intention a week before in a press release, showing it was a move all sides were aware of. But that didn't stop a Wall Street freakout. As soon as Vince's intention to sell his shares was announced on the 9th of November, TKO's stock price dropped 6.5% to $79.26, amongst the lowest it's been since the company's official listing on the stock market on the 12th of September. This is far below the $100 plus share price WWE reached in April 2023 following the UFC merger news. As of the 20th of November, TKO has remained at this new low. Going by that dip, it seems Wall Street doesn't want any signs that Vince could be exiting WWE. Full disclaimer though, you can't put too much stock in the opinions of the stock market, because when Vince was reportedly trying to return in December 2022, that same capitalist wisdom also saw WWE's share price plummet, and Vince being forced out earlier that year caused a stock surge. The conclusion: the stock market doesn't know what it wants, much like wrestling fans. The Vince sell-off dip is actually the second blow to TKO following its official creation, with an even bigger 18% drop when the company announced that SmackDown was moving back to the USA Network from Fox, despite getting a 40% increase on what they were being paid. But who is buying all that stock that Vince is selling? The SEC filing notes that TKO itself will repurchase approximately $100 million worth of the stock. A further $1.85 million will be bought personally by company directors, meaning there's about $540 million's worth up for grabs. Oh my god, let's do a Kickstarter. It might be a shrewd move for TKO to help Vince give up his ownership in the company, because going by TKO's own publicly available statement, he's one of the biggest threats to their business. Between announcing he was going to sell a third of his shares and actually doing it, Fox Sports got to chat to Vince on Veterans Day about WWE's latest gesture to support the armed forces. Along with tribute to the troops, McMahon was promoting WWE headquarters, raising what is thought to be one of the largest American flags in the world above it. At 76 feet wide and 40 feet tall, it has a surface area of 3,040 square feet. That's a pretty big flag. I mean, it's so big, it's almost like it's trying to distract you from something. In that same interview, Vince was asked for comment on the sexual assault allegations and federal investigation into him. McMahon declined. But TKO Holdings sure didn't. On the 7th of November, the same day news of Vince's sell job intentions were made public, TKO gave its 2023 third quarter financial results. In that SEC filing, Vince McMahon, who is TKO's executive chairman, was listed under the Risk Factor section. Risk Factor, title of AEW's next gimmick TV special. Mr. McMahon's membership on our board could expose us to negative publicity and/or have other adverse financial and operational impacts on our business. His membership also may result in additional scrutiny or otherwise exasperate the other risks described herein. Any of these outcomes could directly or indirectly have adverse financial and operational impacts on our business. Vince was forced out from WWE in 2022 due to mounting allegations of sexual misconduct, which he denies. With the Wall Street Journal reporting he had made numerous hush money payments to cover it up. Much like how the government got Al Capone on tax fraud, though, it's the numbers that often spell disaster for you at Sacrifice. Vince's biggest threat isn't really from the women who have accused him of sexual abuse. It's from the Securities and Exchange Commission and their investigation into how exactly WWE paid that hush money. In WWE's previous earnings report in August, the last one before it was officially merged into TKO Holdings, they revealed federal law enforcement agents executed a search warrant and served a federal grand jury subpoena on Mr. McMahon. No charges have been brought in these investigations. The looming threat of Vince being found guilty by the government could be hugely embarrassing for TKO, hurting their stock price further, which could be why they're getting out in front of a potentially unfavorable ruling, making it public they see him as a risk already and helping facilitate him reducing his ownership. But until all that concludes, what does Vince do all day at work? It was widely believed that McMahon ruthlessly forced his way back in WWE in January 2023, disposing many board members who tried to block his return, including his own daughter Stephanie, because he wanted to gain full control again over the business, over creative, over everything. His strategy was to smuggle this intention inside the larger Trojan horse of selling the company. Some Saudi prince would buy it for loads of money, and Vince would get installed back to his former position of power. And that seemed like it was going to happen in those initial interviews with Vince's new boss, Endeavor owner Ari Emanuel. But now the deal is fully closed. It appears as though McMahon is being sidelined by the man who's become his new boss, when Vince probably thought they'd end up as equals, with probably Vince in charge still. Sports Illustrated reported in mid-October that Ari almost immediately removed Vince from any creative duties, making Triple H solely responsible. Instead, Vince, as executive chairman, his focus is elsewhere, particularly in overseeing a lucrative new media rights deal for Raw and the NXT brand. But the TV rights deals are WWE president Nick Khan's domain, and since TKO's creation, he's already completed 2 of the 3, a 40% increase for SmackDown moving to USA Network, and a reported 70% increase with NXT on CW. The only deal that remains is the WWE Raw rights, which they have until October 2024 to sort. So how is Vince filling his time? The man doesn't sleep. Dana White has revealed Vince was instrumental in getting the UFC its first ever Saudi Arabia show for March 2024, telling Sports Business Journal, "It was Vince McMahon. It was 100% Vince McMahon. He made every call. He didn't make one move without picking up the phone and calling me and getting me in the loop and seeing if I was cool with this and that." And he went from being, oddly enough, I don't know why, an enemy of UFC's to being an unbelievable, incredible partner. It's weird to think of the once all-powerful McMahon no longer anywhere near WWE creative, instead reduced to making calls for his former arch-nemesis. Feels like Vince has become a ceremonial role in TKO, one they give odd jobs to make him feel important, but in reality, they're either waiting for a scandal to eject him or for his 2-year deal to expire. It's a smart situation to create. Vince is either your lovable, grumpy, mustachioed granddad mascot, or the near-extinct toxic dinosaur you can fire for good PR, based on what comes out from the SEC. The Hollywood Reporter writes that Vince signed a 2-year deal that ends in 2025. It can be terminated by either side with 180 days notice, and, crucially, McMahon's continued employment shall be conditioned on compliance with the company's conflict of interest and code of conduct, as well as its equal opportunity and non-harassment policy, among other terms. So any future slip-ups, and he could be out immediately. Sports Illustrated adds McMahon possesses an ironclad contract that protects him financially, yet not politically. Whatever happens, Vince will have loads of money. But, unlike any time before in the 4 decades plus he's run WWE, that is at the expense of top-level power. Which is why CNBC speculated on Vince selling his shares that it could indicate his plans to get out of his family business. Dave Meltzer speculated something similar on Wrestling Observer Radio, but went one step further. He noted how different TKO's conduct was from the WWE quarterly calls. Not better or worse, just different, because it wasn't the usual WWE faces up there answering questions. There was no Nick Khan, no Triple H, no Vince. Because the TKO deal, the whole WWE-UFC merger, really isn't just Vince getting out of the wrestling business, it's the McMahon dynasty getting out of the wrestling business. Before Vincent K, there was Vincent J. But, unlike we'd all assumed for decades, the next name, or even majority shareholders, won't be Stephanie or Shane. For the first time ever, WWE's owners won't have the last name McMahon. Do you think WWE is better off now without the McMahons? Tell me how you kinda miss weird storylines like Retribution or Mae Young's Hand Kid in the comments down below. And let me know what you think of these deeper dive news episodes. We're trying something different. And if you do like it, go check out our other analysis on WWE and AEW recently poaching Japanese talent.